few weeks ago when the president went ahead and signed a bunch of bills that had to do with like EV and stuff like this and getting rid of the tax credit, it started to reorient the industry, and manufacturers started looking at different ways to start to manufacture their products to make them better. Funny thing about this is that they all just changed again. Yeah, you see, nobody's giving up on EV. It's not going down without a fight. And this fight is, well, pretty darn cool. So it's time for the EV to pretty much die. And then this thing, the extended range EV, to come on up. This is what we have all been waiting for, and I'm going to break it down to you bit by bit here, so you're going to know exactly what this thing is. Whether you're looking at buying one, whether you're looking at selling one, you're going to be prepped to know what the heck is going on in this world. Because get this, imagine you're driving through the desert, right? And you're like, you're looking down at your gauges, and you're like, oh man, my all electric range is like nothing here, and I got to find a charging station. Well, if you're in an EV, you're kind of hosed. And if you're in a gas car, you're kind of hosed. It doesn't really matter in this instance. But in an extended range EV, you can look down at your gauges and go, oh man, I'm almost out of juice. And either by pushing a button or being automatic, a tiny little generator turns on, fills your battery back up, and next thing you know, you are continuing to drive. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how this whole thing works. Sit back, relax, here we go. So EREVs, what are they? Well, they're EV first, they're gas second is the easiest way to put it, right? So with EREVs, you start off, you charge the vehicle up, right? You don't even have to charge the vehicle up, which is one of the coolest parts about this. But with some of them, you'll be able to plug this thing into the wall, charge it up. And then when you want to drive it, you just unplug it and drive it, right? Just like you would any other vehicle on the planet. But EREVs have a trick up their sleeve. You see, with these, General Motors way back in the day made one. It was called the Volt. So I guess it wasn't way back in the day. BMW made one. It's called the i3. The i8 did this as well. And there were a few others on the market that did it as well. The point is that when Chevrolet launched the Chevrolet Volt, people would go ahead and call this thing out all the time and go, it only has 40 miles of range. Well, here's the thing. That's all it ever needed. It had a tiny little gas tank inside of it. You fill it up to fill up the gas tank, and it would fill up that battery multiple times over. Now, for anybody out there that's like, I will never drive an EV. Oh, well, hey, all those people, they have every right to go ahead and say that they would never drive an EV. But what if it was something that you can directly show them that would affect their pocketbook very quickly? This is where the EREV shines, because for some individuals you got to have that stair step, right? You got to get them on the idea of, okay, so here's your gas car, right? And then you ask them, do you want better fuel economy? And of course they'll go, oh yeah, I want a better fuel economy. All right, how about a hybrid? No, I don't want a hybrid. That was like 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. They would go ahead and complain about hybrid. But as soon as they see the differences in the fuel economy, the game changes. My mom was actually telling me a story yesterday when I was talking to her. And she goes, yeah, I have my my RAV4 here, and I'm driving it. And my friend looks over, and she's like complaining about hybrids and how she would never own a hybrid, and I'm just dealing with it. And all of a sudden, my mom goes, and then I pointed at the gauges, and she saw 48.5. And I said, do you know what that number is? And the woman apparently said, no, I don't. I have no idea what it is, but I would never own a hybrid. And mom goes, that's my fuel economy. And as my mother would, she shut her mouth, looked out the window, and let the person go ahead and stew on that for a second, simply because, when it comes down to the most expensive bills that some of us have, comes down to the money that we waste when we put them in our gas tank. So EREV is here to change the game, right? So think of it like having an electric vehicle like 99% of the time, but that 1% is going to be that safety net on long trips that's going to make you go, hey, you know what, there's a charging station there. Should we pull over, honey? Do we have gas? Yeah, we have gas. No, just keep going. Well, how about the next one? No, just keep going. Just keep driving. Just keep driving, because this thing will go on forever, which is one of the most beautiful things about EREV, right? The ability to have a vehicle that, well, you don't need to stop and charge it. So for all those people out there that think that charging is this major inconvenience, no reason to stop and charge. And then when you get home, some of these vehicles will give you the ability to plug it on in and charge it all the way up for, dirt cheap. And then if you want, you can run it on gas all day long if you feel the need to. Quick definition on these. So what is an EREV technically? Well, technically, it's, as I said, it's an EV first with this battery generator backup thing inside of it, right? And with this, when you've gone ahead and you've depleted the battery, these will switch over to gas. And that's just how it is. But the gas engine is not connected to the drivetrain. Now, this means that when you get in the vehicle and you're driving it, it's going to have that nice silent feel that electric has. It's going to have that really quick get up and go that electric has. It's going to do all the amazing things that an EV will do. But for anybody that is gas minded out there, we can look at them and go, yo, we got your back too, right? Because we can go ahead and put in, let's say, 10 gallons of gas in this thing. And its fuel efficiency, instead of being in, let's say, like the 30s, 35, you know where those people that hate EVs love to be for fuel economy. It's like their sweet spot for wasting cash. They could go ahead and get on into this thing or this design of vehicle and spend a fraction of the price and still be super happy that, oh man, I get to go to the gas pump and still visit these people all the time, make my weekly donation to OPEC. And so I mean, if that's what they want to do, cool, we're going to give them that ability. But here's the beautiful part about this: if you're an EV person and you've been subject of driving in places that just don't support your lifestyle, and there are still some places like that where you have to drive out there and you're just like, where do I charge? Right? And I don't want to be on 110. That's super slow, and I'm going to be here like for the next few days. So in this scenario, you can go ahead, hop out of your EV, get into an EREV, and not have any of those issues ever again. How do we hit this from the buyer's perspective, though? Well, we got to educate them, right? They need to trust these things. They need to have confidence in the fact that they work the way that they do. And they need to understand that this isn't some trick that's being pulled over their eyes, right? We know that humanity has to make this next page turn, right? We got to get off burning these fossil fuels and move on into a different type of technology. Now, for any of you that's like, well, Andy's gone full tree hugger, hold on a second here. If any of you are Star Wars fans, if you are sci-fi fans, if you are fans of, anything space faring, let me fill you out on a little something here. You can't burn gasoline in space. No, you can't. And you want to know why you can't? Because these little crazy things called explosions, right? Not good for the people on the spacecraft. So here's the deal. If you want to go ahead and see humanity actually move forward, we got to get past this whole idea that, what happened in the 1800s, we can let it go today. We can just let it go, right? The auto design the engine. Right, you had James Atkinson in there. You had all of these incredible minds designing the internal combustion engine, and it was great for about 120 years, 150 years. It's time to make that change, and this is the next step, right? So EV was, for a lot of people, too dramatic. That's fine, too dramatic. This is the next step in that whole process. So with all good things, we have detractors, right? And so I sat down and I thought about it over the weekend, and I said, okay, so we are all manufacturers right now are looking at this whole extended range EV kind of idea. And with these, what will people say that will be just as ridiculous as what they say about EVs, right? Because we all make assumptions, and no matter how much we love or hate something, we all make mistakes in what we say about them. But with EV, we can be honest here, it's been filleted with a bunch of misinformation that just kind of makes people hate it for whatever reason. I don't understand why we hate things because of what's under the hood. Yeah, there was a lot of meaning there. But here's the thing. When we go ahead and take a look at this in my list that I created, so you'll have some people that will go, well, it's just a PHEV. Question for you. What are you driving right now? Oh, yeah. You got that big old V6. You've had that vehicle for how long? About 9 years. No kidding. I bet it's doing great on fuel efficiency. So obviously we can't say that to a customer. But the thing is that these things do run on gas. Right. But with PHEVs, they're going to use more of like a hybrid sort of primary drive where you have the gas engine and the electric motor working together to give you that acceleration. Whereas with EREVs, 90% of the time, it's an EV mode. The rest of the time, it's just got that little, smaller than a lawnmower engine in most circumstances, firing up, spinning a little generator, and then that goes ahead and fills your battery back up. And then you'll also have other people that will go ahead and say, well, it still uses gas, so why bother? Really? Really? You're not going to run the basic math on your checking account here, right? Because here's the thing, it still uses gas, yes, but your fuel efficiency is going to be absolutely insanely nuts, right? So if your commute is, let's say, under 50 miles, you might actually never use gas with this thing. And then you get home, you plug it back in, and then your next day, there you go, no gas again. But on long trips, you're not going to have to stress at all. Right? I imagine that with these things, because there's so few of them that are on the market right now, there's going to be like a whole horde of them coming up probably in the next few years here. But with these things, I would imagine that we will be breaking probably the 1,000-mile mark per battery per tank fairly quickly. Reason being is that, let's say I have a vehicle that runs 300 miles on a charge, right? Well, if they got a gas engine inside of there, and that little gas engine can charge that battery up, let's say in 5 gallons. Okay. I don't have the actual energy conversion sitting in front of me, but let's just say we can now go ahead and charge that battery up one extra time. We're up to 600 miles. Another time, and we are up to 900 or 600. Yeah, 900 miles. And then after that, now we're up to 1,200, and now your 15-gallon tank is depleted. So we just went ahead and went 1,200 miles on 15 gallons. Who does that? It's hilarious. So this particular platform is not new. Actually, it's been around a very, very, very long time. So we're going to talk history in just a moment here. But other little things. Some people will say, well, more parts equals more maintenance issues. What are you like 19? You buying a car from like the 1930s, and you're like, oh, it has power windows now, so therefore must be complicated. It's magic. They roll up, they roll down. No, these things are not brand new. You got to remember is that, these generators that are inside of here, a lot of them are no bigger than your average small EV motor. Also, when it comes, you're talking like a pool motor kind of size with some of this stuff. In addition to that, they don't have a transmission, right? A lot of them have reduction gear systems inside of them, but there's no transmission. There's going to be fewer moving parts than most hybrids because you don't have a connection of the gas engine and the electric motor being bolted together to perform that action. So there's going to overall be less maintenance. Now, nice part about this is that oil changes probably are not going to be very often because you're going to be using this vehicle. 90% of your mileage is going to be an EV. And then it just kicks on that little motor in the back, engine in the back, to spin a little generator. So from a CX angle, there will always be the people that will try to go ahead and come on in and go, well, the good things are absolutely terrible. We know that, right? We know that we're going to get people on in with crappy attitudes going, well, why would I want the EV? Well, here's the deal. Because again, you on your toothbrush you used this morning, it had a motor on it. On your screwdriver, you have a motor on that too. I've done this a billion times. Thing is that when you put one in a car, oh my God, everybody freaks out. You got nothing to freak out about. Right? So with these, you're going to find that these tiny little motors or engines that are going to go inside here, they're going to be sub 1 liter, super, super small. I wouldn't even doubt it if the two-stroke engine in some variation or design was to come on back. Hopefully not as a two-stroke, but I'm talking just that simple will be back. Heck, the design from a few weeks ago that I saw Porsche come out with that was a 6-stroke engine would actually work perfectly in here. Wonder if they're going to do something with that. But we need to be able to anticipate these things from the customer and be able to go ahead and say, hey, listen, it's not that bad. It's okay. How about you just simply go ahead and drive one? Similar to the story that I told about my mom just a minute ago, right? Her friend got in the car hating hybrids and then realized, oh my gosh, I'm actually in a hybrid. It feels like a normal car. Holy smokes, no way. And whoa, you're getting almost 50 miles to the gallon? How are you doing this? It's a hybrid. It's just mind-blowing, the roadblocks that people will put in their own way to make sure that they can't be successful in their own lives. So as far as this goes, try to make it a stress-free buying experience. Just have your ducks in a row. So when you show the customer something, they can go ahead and go, oh my gosh, this is actually pretty darn awesome. All right, so the very first hybrids or the first series hybrid rather, which was the very long predecessor to this, was first done in 1896. Now, in the late 1800s, there was a lot going on with propulsion. We realized pretty early on, and a slightly different thought process though. We realized pretty early on that fossil fuel was not the way to go. And the reason for this, number one, Henry Ford was screaming it. Number two, when it came down to things like electric, well, we realized that pretty quickly that drilling was very expensive. It required new machinery that was different that not everybody had. And at the same time, transportation of oil was just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy expensive. There's a reason why fuel in the United States costs so much. I mean, some countries it's far worse. But when it comes to here and well, the rest of the world in the 1800s, they realized that we're all going to have electricity. Let's just go ahead and start there. So, when a German inventor in 1896 created the first series hybrid, right? This was the first recorded attempt at something that resembled an EREV, right? It came from Andreas Falken. He was a German inventor. He ended up developing the first electric cars around that time, and other engineers like let's see, H. Piper over in Belgium, they experimented with these things, and they realized that wait, hold on, we have generators. We have the electric vehicle. How about we marry them together in something that just simply makes sense? So when you need more power, you just flip a switch, and next thing you know, oh, hey, look at that, we got more range. Now, before he ended up getting famous in 1901, Ferdinand Porsche went ahead and made what was called the Lunar Porsche Mixte. I think I'm saying that right. And this particular vehicle used a gas engine and an electric motor on the wheels, right? The concept nearly identically the same to modern day EREVs because people were starting to understand is that, and Porsche was huge with this. Porsche actually created one of the first actual EVs that's out there. They created one of the very first actual hybrids that was out there. And then the whole industry just started to change once people were like, no, we are going to dig it up and we are going to pump it into our car. And by the way, it comes from dinosaurs. It doesn't. It doesn't. That's not oil at all. Now, the next iteration came in 1920. This is when EREV started to be applied to other applications because Ford had his vehicle out, the assembly line was going, vehicles were being cranked out. We had a couple wars on the horizon here, not that we were gearing up for those, that we saw them in the future or anything. But the thing is that we were starting to industrialize. So with all of this industrialization, people went ahead and said, hey, the internal combustion engine is pretty handy. Let's just go ahead and shoehorn it in everything. And so then you had things like St. Louis had their smog issue. You had Hollywood problems. You had all sorts of. I mean, you take a look at what the small gas two-stroke electric engine did to I guess China's atmosphere in some of their major cities. So the thing was is that gas started to grab hold, but transportation services looked at it and said, wait. EREV is actually the way to go. Your average train right now, if it's not powered by some sort of electricity, like a bullet train, it's an EREV. It powers itself off of a gigantic battery that is then powered by massive generators that are on there. Now, they figured out in the transportation industry, in trains and in submarines, that the electric motor has more power. And we can use the power from the liquid fuel to charge that battery up so that power can be used more effectively when we go ahead and transfer from our liquid to our mechanical energy. So with this, by going ahead and making it so the electric motor can use its very high torque capabilities, we're able to put this thing on, again, trains. And I think there was a commercial back in the day from like Amtrak or something that said, well, we can go like 50 miles on 1 gallon. And if you just simply think about that for a second, 50 miles on 1 gallon and it's a train, that's bonkers. I mean, it should be like 1 gallon per foot. But no, that's not actually the case here anymore with locomotive. So now that we start to apply it to car, this becomes pretty cool. Now, moving on to the next one here. So let's get up to modern day. In modern day, in the 1960s and 1980s, the oil crisis happens. And when the oil crisis happened, it was bad. And I'll do a podcast on that eventually. But the world faced this terrible fuel shortage, and General Motors started to experience this massive drop in their sales. And so what they did is they took a look at what people were actually needing. And what they realized was the obvious. They didn't necessarily need more gas. They needed more range. And so what they did is they created what was called the Sterling 1. The Sterling 1 went ahead and it featured a battery pack that was supplemented, well, with a small Sterling engine. And this thing just kept the charge going. It would just run and keep that battery topped up. Now, with this, though, the batteries are too weak to make it practical, but they realized that they were really onto something. This vehicle eventually gave rise to the Chevrolet Volt and Bolt and the ideas behind the BMW i3 and i8s. But Briggs and Stratton looked at this and they were like, well, hold the phone here, General Motors. We got something here as well. So what they did is they built something that looked more like a golf cart. And this little golf cart little thing was powered by, a battery, just like any of them. But it also included that gasoline engine. And they did this because they're like, well, what if somebody wants to go a long distance with their golf cart? And when this happened, you were able to go ahead and charge this thing up and just keep driving and driving and driving and driving and driving. It was great. So with this, people started to finally realize, at least with golf cart type items, that I can go pretty darn far with these. So when we get to modern day, today, right, starting, I'm going to go 1997 and later, is that, you had Prius come on the scene, right? Toyota Prius was not an EREV, it was a hybrid, but it paved the way for a lot of these vehicles to come on in that you saw come down from, from General Motors, and you saw come from, the Kia Hyundai, and then you saw come from pretty much everybody. We do own that to Prius. Now, in some one way or another. Now, since this did start to open it up a little bit, companies like Toyota in 2000 looked really closely at what Toyota was doing and said, okay, so Toyota is making a vehicle that is kind of an EREV, but they connected the electric motor and the engine nearly together and to make it go ahead and perform actions that are hybrid. This doesn't make any sense. And it really doesn't, because when you take a look at the hybrid design compared to an EREV, you still have a gas engine and it's working all the time, right? You're primarily running on gas with this electric motor that kicks in to reduce parasitic losses, right? The amount of weight that the engine needs to go ahead and move. So GM once again toyed with this idea a little bit. They came up with this range extension system and they started really diving into it. They didn't get around to mass producing this thing because they had issues with Saturn at the time. And I mean, the early 2000s were not a great time for General Motors. They were going through a complete rebuilding, so they kind of shelved it. Well, here comes Fisker. Now, Fisker is a company that when they were around and they just went out of business, I love these guys. Their Fisker Karma, what a beautiful machine. I mean, you want to talk about a car that just embodied beautiful design, beautiful resources, and also embodied environmentalism. And when it comes to this, we all care about the environment in one way or another. Fisker, though, took it a whole nother step. Most of their car was made out of recycled materials. And then on top of that, they went ahead and did things like use like real woods and leaves and stuff like that. Yes, I said leaves. And inlaid them in the dash. These cars were stunning. Thing is, though, is that the car failed. And the reason that the car failed is because it was crazy expensive. Nobody understood it, and eventually was plagued with issues as far as just going ahead and getting it fixed. The bad press eventually came down on them, financial struggles, and the Fisker Karma was killed. And you can still see them today. If you do see one in like a parking lot or something like that, they make you stop. They make you look. They're absolutely gorgeous cars. But if they do have problems, you're kind of SOL. And so then, here comes General Motors again. Now, General Motors stepped back up to the helm after Fisker said, "Hey, you know what? We got to kind of tap out a little bit on this." Now, Fisker didn't die off until just very, very recently. I think December, November last year, in 2024. But what they did end up doing, Chevrolet, is going ahead and taking a quick look at what everybody was doing out there, and they said, "Wait. We've partnered with some absolutely incredible designers, some incredible engineers, and we're going to go find some people out there that could help us out a little bit because we have an idea." And they put the idea in front of a lot of people, especially their engineers, and their engineers kind of backed up a little bit, and they're like, I don't know. How about we just make a hybrid? And they said, no, listen, we screwed around with EV1. We brought out Hummer, right? Everybody knows what happened. Nobody wants to talk about it. I'll do a podcast on it someday. But the thing is that we got rid of our electrics. We brought out this thing, and this thing's out here. Nobody wants to really go ahead and buy it because it looks like a gigantic rolling shoebox, and it doesn't really embody Hummer. And so let's go ahead and we're going to kill this, and then we'll figure something else out in the end. Well, with this, during this time of transition, everybody went ahead and said, well, the EV1 should have stuck around, right? Now they're all sitting out there in a desert somewhere just rotting away. But the thing is that General Motors had another trick up their sleeve. Here's the Volt. They looked at their engineers and designers and they said, here's the rules. We want this thing to only go 40 miles. And they said, only 40 miles? And they said, whoa, hold on. And we want a gas generator to kick in when that battery starts to drain. Oh. Oh, okay, this is a little bizarre, but I hear you. And then they said, now here's the thing. We want this to be a platform that people can go ahead and say, hey, I can unplug it from the house, drive 40 miles on a charge. But if I ended up going further than that, I wanted to go ahead and switch on over to gas, right? And the gas engine was never connected directly to the drive line. This way, you would be able to go ahead and hit the accelerator, and it would still do its job as an electric vehicle, and the vehicle wouldn't feel bizarre or weird like some hybrids tend to do. So as time progressed, they went ahead and said, you know what? We have some better ideas on the horizon. Let's go ahead and create the Bolt. So they created the Bolt, and they started to change direction and go more just straight up EV. But the Volt itself will probably make some fashion of a return. I would bet a lot of coin that when it comes down to the Bolt coming back, well, you're probably going to see it. Because with EREV, it's something that has to happen. It's almost like looking for the God particle in modern day, right? It will change absolutely everything, because now we can look at customers and go, hey, so yeah, you wanted a 35, 40 miles of the gallon, right? Yeah. So what if I can go ahead and get you, I don't know, like 200? I kid you not. This is what we can tell people, because the equivalent cost of charging a vehicle to 40 miles is a fraction of the cost of filling up a gas car to 40 miles. So BMW hops on this train, and they're like, okay, the Volt's doing okay. 5 years later, it comes out in 2010. BMW comes out with the i3 Rex in let's see, 2015. And then when the i3 came out, they said, hey, listen, you can go ahead and buy it as an electric car. So cool, you can buy it as an electric car, or you can get the range extender. And people would go ahead and say, wait, what's the range extender there? Well, if you don't want to worry about where you're going to charge this thing, you just go ahead and put a couple gallons of gas in it, and it charges your battery up a few times. What? So wait, hold on. Instead of charging through the wall, I can charge at the gas station? Yeah, actually, that's exactly what I'm telling you. Just note that if you charge it from the wall, it's going to be substantially less in cost. But if you're one of those people that just wants that safety net, you can very simply go ahead and just fill it up at a gas station, and the generator kicks in and charges your car up. Are you kidding me? No, that's exactly how it works. So with this, it found this little niche in the automotive industry, and it didn't sell quickly. And the reason was the BMW i3, it's a tiny car. I mean, I don't mean to pick on BMW with this thing, but there's somebody needs to manufacture a car like this for people. It's about the size of a golf cart. But if you ever get inside one of these, they're gorgeous. The BMW totally made up for its weird looking exterior with an absolutely stunning interior. Now, let's go ahead and look at the 2000s. Today, Li Auto has an EREV, and they're in the Chinese market. Now, they just went ahead and broke 500,000 vehicles in 2020, and all they make are EREVs. So that's just from 2023 to 2024. That's all they make. If that's the case, and they brought this thing out and with very little advertising just demolished the gas and also all their competitors when it comes to EV, it tells me that people are ready for EV. But they want that false security of knowing that, well, if I'm driving, I'm not going to have an issue charging. That's not a problem with EV people. You can find a charger. That's not an issue at all. But the only people that really know that are confident in it, are people that have been brave enough to buy EVs. This is where the EREV shines. It takes that whole idea of, well, you got to go ahead and charge it all the time away. Actually, when you take a look and compare it to PHEVs, people that have PHEVs, 60% of them never plug their vehicle in. They spend all that money to get a PHEV, and they never plug the darn vehicle in to save themselves money. EREVs can be used in some cases in this very similar manner. You get in, you drive it, and once the thing starts to deplete charge, it charges itself back up. So if that's the way that you want to drive your vehicle and get, absolutely insane fuel efficiency and only use gas, cool. But Li Auto figured it out, right? I mean, their success proves that many customers, want these particular benefits of electric driving without having these just massive headaches of where do I pull over, where do I do this, because some people, when things are new, they just get confused. And so this is a way of just kind of helping them out. Also, with these, again, they're generators, so they have these other options that come along with them. First off, they don't need to always be fueled off gasoline, right? It's very realistic that hydrogen can actually be built into this idea in it, because it's not very much hydrogen. It's not like you're driving around with like this massive like cell on the top of your bus or anything, which we currently see. But also, EREVs give you the ability potentially to lace into infrastructure, meaning that let's say your buddy runs out of juice on the side of the road, he's got his electric vehicle. You can just pull your vehicle on over and hook your generator into it potentially. Now, when it comes to these, vehicle to X is actually a reality, right? The ability to, let's say, go out and get like 10 gallons of gas in emergency, hurricanes coming, tornado, whatever it might be. And not that you could predict a tornado quite that quickly, but if you're in an emergency situation, fill your vehicle up, attach everything to your vehicle, and it powers major parts of your house. This car has a lot of potential. So as we go ahead and we move into this next generation of vehicle, there's a couple things that we need to understand. We got to be open-minded, right? Because concepts like this have the ability to offer the best of both worlds and absolutely change the world that your customer lives in when it comes to driving their car. In addition to that, the idea of range anxiety, it's gone. You don't even need to think about it anymore. It's just gone. It's in the ether. You don't ever need to go ahead and bring that conversation back up. Actually, you could look at customers and go, hey, when it comes to your gas car, are you concerned that, have you ever been concerned that when you're driving places that you'd have like enough gas, get there all the way through the desert, or, get to your destination like the middle of Dakota, something like that? Yeah, occasionally, very rarely, but occasionally. Okay, you're not going to have that issue here. Reason is you can go much further now, right? If you forgot to fill up this week, don't worry about it. Next week, maybe the week after that. But, worst comes to worst, just plug your vehicle in. You can charge it up like 50 miles or so. But in that electric mode, you got that ability as well, right? So if you do run out of gas, peter over the side of the road, plug it in, and next thing you know, you can be up and running again. Or another really big benefit is going to be what we call customer lifestyle match, where if your customer is just doing short commutes that day, just plug the vehicle in. And if that's every day of your life, you can simply go ahead, unplug, and drive it your 30, 40 miles. There's not a charge. But on the long trips, you got that gas reserve. Now, this actually does become a double-edged sword, because on the positive side, it's really nice. Those long trips, no range anxiety, those ability to plug it in for short trips always makes it awesome. But the problem is the same thing that Chevy Volt people had, is that General Motors, from what I remember, sent out a bulletin to all of their customers going, hey, you actually got to drive your cars. Like you got to use up that fuel. We are replacing too many parts simply because people, this vehicle is so effective that people are driving this thing and they're not actually using any gasoline. So people would hit the interstate, let's say after like 5 or 6 years of driving this or having this, and they still have their old gas in the back. Like when they bought the car, they hit the interstate and things locks up, and next thing you know, you're pulled over on the side of the road because you can't go anywhere because you just locked your engine up due to the sludged up fuel. But the deal is that that's how effective these things are, is that when people realize, wait, I can just plug in and drive it. Yeah, just like a PHEV. But you got to use the gas that's in the car, right? So that is critically important. And your selling is going to be made simple. It's going to be made super simple. The reason is that when it comes down to the customer's needs and the EREV is going to be in everything. We have, the whole automotive industry has gone ahead and invested heavily over the past few years in EV. They're not backing down. And I will say it again and again and again. I don't care who's president. I don't care, who's in the Oval Office. I don't care who they hire to go ahead and regulate the automotive industry. The free market, to a degree, will still dictate its own behavior. So if that is in fact the case, and people still want these higher fuel efficiency numbers, the hell with CAFE standards for a minute. And if all of a sudden the president's like, well, it's going to be, 70 miles to the gallon, which I know obviously our current president is not saying that, but if he did, well, that number is actually outpaced by consumer demand usually. So if you put a number of, let's say, 50 miles to the gallon on the window sticker, all of a sudden people are going to go, oh, what's that? Well, what if it was 70? What if it was 80? What if it was 120? Now you have customers that will go ahead and go, well, what do you mean it does that? Well, you see, it's electric, but it also goes ahead and has a gas backup, so you don't have to worry about all of these other things. Wait, what? Yeah. Well, I swore I would never drive an EV, but, this makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, it really does. It makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. So EREVs are going to be something that is going to stick around for a very long time. But here's the thing with all of this is that EREVs are that perfect transitionary vehicle, though. For you'll have people that will drive miles and miles and miles, right? And I've said it, and I'll continue to say it, is that EVs are meant for people that drive long distances. And when you do the math, it just checks out. But an EREV will be meant for those people that are either driving long distances or they're people that are just scared, and that's okay, right? This next transition, this next stair step, right, enables somebody that was in a gas car to go to hybrid, or if they don't like hybrid, they can go to a PHEV, or let's say they're still looking at PHEV and they're going, no, the fuel economy just isn't good enough. This is where EREV comes in. Now you can go ahead and you can dedicate yourself to more. Hey, you know what? I want that EV feel, right, but I don't want the cost. Right. So think about this stuff, because from a direction of customer service, you can offer up a ton of value now. You can offer up your customer the ability to understand that, hey, I am in it for you because I care enough to show you this stuff and tailor your needs to a vehicle that you absolutely love, so you can make a faster buying decision that motivates you to spend more money today. Right. So as far as that goes, please go ahead and click that subscribe button down. And I think it's like over here-ish, wherever it might be. Click that subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, click the little bell as well. And I'll be publishing a lot more content coming up. I have a couple of really cool interviews coming up at the end of March here, so I hope you stick around for that. In addition to that, next week I am going to go with another tech podcast, and we're going to loop in some CX stuff in there. We'll kind of bring it all together. But I want to dive a little bit deeper down this rabbit hole of next generation technologies that empower our vehicles and how exactly we can make sure that our customers are going to be super happy in the end. All right, everybody. Thanks for nerding out with me. I will talk to y'all later.